Okay, good evening, everyone. The January 28th, 2026 meeting of the Solana Beach City Council is called to order. City Attorney, any items to report from closed session?
Good evening, Mayor. No reportable action. Thank you.
Very good. Let the record show that all council members are present, including Deputy Mayor McDonald, who is joining us by teleconference for good cause. Deputy Mayor, would you like to explain your good cause, or just cause? Thank you.
Yeah, so I am ill and I'm fairly sure that I have the flu, which is communicable. So I decided to stay home and keep my virus home as well. So that is my just cause, and there's no one in the room with me over the age of 18.
Very good. Thank you. And thanks for your consideration and staying home. We hope you get well soon, and thanks for participating for the rest of the evening. Now is the flag salute. Please stand and join me. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no proclamations or presentations this evening. We're on to approval of the agenda. City Manager, are there changes?
Yes, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, we do have one change to the agenda tonight. We will be withdrawing item L1, the 2026 Annual Citizen Commission appointments. We realize there's some missing backup documentation for some of our candidates, and we want to be able to provide the full complement of information for consideration. So we'll be bringing that back to you at the next meeting.
Very good. All right. May I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion by Zito.
Yeah, can I ask a question
Yes,
first of
of
all?
course.
Do we know if anyone showed up to speak on that item?
Did anybody, I don't think
Do
anybody
we have
is
any
here to
speaker slips
speak.
on that? Because
One person came in, but she found out that
oh, okay,
had
so they're
been,
gone. Because I
and
wanted
we
to
did
give them.
email everybody.
Okay, you did. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So I'll move approval then.
Very good. And second by Councilmember Becker. We have to call the vote. So, if, City Clerk?
Sorry. Mayor Huebner,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Zito,
Zito, yes.
Councilmember Edson.
Edson, aye.
Yes. Okay. Councilmember
That was
Becker.
weird. Yes. Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. All right. Do we have any oral communications? No oral communications. Okay, so it's now on to announcements. I'll start with my mayor's announcements. Business certificate renewals. A quick reminder that this is the last chance to renew your business certificates for 2026. The good news is you can renew online anytime. Visit our website under, quote, city services, end quote, for all the details. If certificates aren't renewed by January 31st, they'll be closed and you'll need to submit a new application to reopen. So we definitely encourage you to take care of it now. Solana Striders. Join us for Solana Striders, our new monthly walking club designed for mature adults who want to stay active, healthy, and connected. Our next walk is this Monday, February 2nd at 8:30 a.m. We'll meet at the north end of the train station parking lot and enjoy a scenic stroll through the Harbaugh Seaside Trails. This is a relaxed, welcoming experience for walkers of all ability levels. Just wear comfortable clothes, good walking shoes, and bring some water. If you'd like more details, contact the City of Solana Beach Parks and Rec Department at 858-720-2454. We hope to see you there. And finally, the Heat Pump Water Rebate Incentive Program. As a reminder, in accordance with the Climate Action Plan, the city launched a new rebate program this year where residents are eligible by replacing your old gas water heater with a high-efficiency heat pump water heater. They're 3 times more efficient and safer for your home. Permits dated January 1st of this year or later qualify. Apply now and stack your savings with other rebates. Details are on our website under City Services Environmental Sustainability. Council, anybody have any announcements? No. Oh, Councilmember Edson.
Yes, I just wanted to announce that NCTD is offering free rides on February 4th to honor Rosa Parks' birthday. And it's a really great time for people to get out and try public transit. And it's in honor of an amazing woman.
Very good. Good thing. I see nobody else. Deputy Mayor, do you have any announcements? No announcements. Okay, City Manager.
Yes, I have one announcement tonight. I'd like to provide an update on the fire management. Last week, the City of Del Mar took to their council a cost-sharing agreement for the interim fire chief and associated staff that are working on our fire organization and recruitment of our permanent fire chief. As part of that, the city of Solana Beach, and through your delegation at a previous item that we brought last September, I will be sharing that, or I'll be signing that agreement. So we will be entering in for that 50% cost recovery on our interim fire chief. And we appreciate working with Del Mar and their city council and our interim chief. It's been really successful so far, and we look forward to great things.
Great, that's good news. Okay, we're on to the consent calendar. Items listed on the consent calendar are to be acted upon in a single action of the city council unless pulled for discussion. Any member of the public may address the city council on an item of concern on the consent calendar through the city clerk. Items removed from the consent calendar by any member of the public will be discussed immediately following approval of the consent calendar. Any items pulled from the calendar by council will be trailed to the end of the agenda. City clerk, have any members of the public pulled an item from consent? Anybody want to pull an item? Councilmember Zito.
Yeah, I'd like to pull J2.
J2.
With that, I move approval for the remainder of the consent calendar.
Okay, and what is that one item? That J2 item is the professional services agreement with Geotech. Okay. All righty. Councilmember Edson is the second.
Second.
Very good. City clerk, can you please call the vote?
Mayor Hibner,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Zito,
Zito, yes.
Councilmember Edson,
Edson, yes.
and Councilmember Becker.
Yes. Okay, that passes unanimously. We're on to the first item, which is a public hearing.
No, because it's council.
Oh, no, we have that trails to the end when a council member, yeah. Yeah.
That's a new thing for me.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's all right.
So item K1 is a public hearing on 1505 Loma Santa Fe Drive. This is the Loma Santa Fe Country Club, and the case is modification 25-007, SDP 25-015. And with that, I'll turn it over to Assistant Planner John Delmar to give the presentation.
Thank you.
John.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor. Sorry about that. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. This is a request by the applicant, Loma Santa Fe Country Club, for a modification to a previously approved development review permit and conditional use permit, and a new structure development permit to construct a 2,462 square foot expansion to the existing deck at 1505 Loma Santa Fe Drive. The site is located in the open space recreational zone and the scenic area overlay zone. The 8-acre parcel is located on the southwest corner of Loma Santa Fe and Highland Drive. Here's an aerial photo showing the existing layout of the site. The site has long been developed with a country club that supports an 18-hole golf course and serves as a recreational space for the surrounding area. The country club is currently developed with a main clubhouse, which includes an existing enclosed dining deck, a health and fitness building, and other accessory structures such as a snack shack. Additional accessory uses include tennis and pickleball courts, swimming pools, and a driving range. Vehicular access is taken from Highland Drive to an existing 264-space parking lot. The existing deck and the proposed expansion are along the western facade of the existing clubhouse, which is outlined in blue on the screen. Here's an aerial view of the clubhouse. And the clubhouse includes a pro shop and cart barn at the basement level with locker rooms, offices, a kitchen, bar, and dining area with an enclosed deck area on the upper level. The project proposed would double the existing 2,462 square foot dining deck. This is a view of the western facade of the building showing the existing deck and the story poles representing the proposed expansion. As discussed, the project requires a modification to the previously approved DRP and CUP to allow for grading in excess of 50 cubic yards within the scenic area overlay zone, to allow for the floor area expansion, and for council's consideration of a reduction in the required parking. An SDP is required for construction in excess of 16 feet. Here's a project description, which I'll briefly go over. The lot size is 361,983 square feet. The maximum building coverage allowed is 50%, and with the proposed expansion, the total proposed building coverage is 23%. The total proposed floor area is 42,424 square feet, which includes the 27,962 square foot clubhouse, the 9,400 square foot fitness building, and the 2,600 square foot snack shack. Within the OSR zone, the setbacks are determined on an individual basis through the CUP application process, with the exception that a minimum 10-foot setback is required when the site abuts a residentially zoned lot. The proposed expansion is over 100 feet from all adjacent property lines. The scope includes 770 cubic yards of grading with 703 cubic yards of fill and 40 cubic yards of cut. The project will not alter the overall topography. The majority of the grading is required for the proposed retaining wall planters adjacent to the deck. The highest point of the proposed expansion is 21.3 feet above the proposed grade, or 346.3 feet MSL. On the left of the screen is the overall proposed site plan showing the entire parcel and all the structures on site. On the right is the enlarged plan showing the clubhouse building in dark gray and the expansion in light gray. Here's the proposed west elevation showing the deck expansion and the existing roof ridges beyond. The smaller elevation on the bottom of the screen is the enlarged view of the stair. And here's the south elevation of the deck. This is an east-west section running through the proposed retaining wall planters, the deck expansion, and the existing deck. The red dashed line distinguishes between the proposed expansion on the left and the existing deck on the right. Now I will go over the parking history for the site. The Loma Santa Fe Country Club is legally non-conforming with respects to parking because it was originally developed under the County of San Diego zoning regulations prior to the city's incorporation. Parking at the site has evolved through multiple city council approvals since incorporation. In early parking requirements under the city's incorporation, the parking requirements were based solely on square footage of the clubhouse and did not account for other uses. Later municipal code amendments increased parking requirements by calculating parking separately for each use, including the dining area, the pool, the gym, the tennis courts, and the golf course. As a result, the site became legally non-conforming with respects to parking. That said, the non-conforming section of the municipal code allows additions of less than 50% of the existing floor area, provided parking is provided for the expansion. All subsequent projects since incorporation have followed this standard, except for the project before you tonight, which is requesting council approval without the required 11 parking spaces for the expansion. Here's a brief summary of the parking history on the site, outlining the previous approval since incorporation. In 1991, the City Council approved construction of a new tennis court, which did not require additional parking under the zoning regulations in effect at the time. The site was required to provide 162 spaces based on the size of the existing clubhouse, and 212 spaces were already provided on site. In 1994, a clubhouse expansion required 9 additional spaces, all of which were provided, bringing the total to 220 spaces on site. In 1999, another clubhouse expansion required 6 additional spaces. However, the project provided 44 new spaces, resulting in a surplus of 38 spaces and a total of 265 on site. The additional spaces were intended to accommodate future expansions. In 2000, the health and fitness building expansion required 24 additional spaces, reducing the surplus to 14 spaces while maintaining the total of 265 on site. The project before you tonight would require 25 additional spaces under the current zoning regulations. When applied against the existing 14 space surplus, the project would result in a net deficiency of 11 spaces. The site currently provides 264 spaces, as one previously approved parking space was removed due to restriping to comply with updated ADA regulations since the previous approval. The applicant is requesting City Council approval of the project without adding the 11 additional parking spaces that would otherwise be required. To support this request, the applicant submitted a parking justification letter that outlines the long-standing operational characteristics of the country club and its historical parking demand. The applicant claims the site functions as an integrated facility where members often use multiple amenities such as the golf course, tennis courts, fitness facilities, and restaurant during a single visit. They believe that because of this overlap, the zoning ordinance's method of calculating parking separately for each use can overestimate the actual demand. The applicant also claims the project does not increase dining capacity, but the deck expansion would relocate dining activity that's already occurring in the clubhouse to the exterior deck. Additionally, the club membership is capped, and they also state that approximately 70 members use private golf carts rather than automobiles, further reducing the vehicle parking demand. And finally, an informal parking study was conducted by the club's general manager, supported by historical data and on-site observations. Based on these factors, the applicant is requesting that the City Council approve the project without requiring the additional 11 spaces. The proposed expansion exceeds 16 feet in height, and therefore the project went through the SDP process. Story poles were installed and certified on November 3rd of 2025, and notices were mailed establishing a deadline to file for view assessment by January 9th of this year. No applications for view assessment were received. Therefore, if the council can make the findings to approve the project, the SDP would be approved administratively. The council may approve or conditionally approve a DRP if the following findings can be made. The proposed development is consistent with the general plan and applicable zoning regulations. The proposed development complies with the development criteria for a DRP, and all required permits and approvals have been obtained prior to or concurrently with the DRP. And if the project requires a permit or approval from a state or federal agency, the council may conditionally approve the development upon the applicant obtaining that approval. Due to the property's location within the scenic area overlay zone, in addition to the development review permit requirements, the City Council must also confirm that the project does not interfere or degrade with the visual features of the site or adjacent sites which contribute to its scenic attractiveness. The specific criteria that shall be evaluated is on the screen, which is the building characteristics, building and structure placement, landscaping, roads, pedestrian walkways and storage areas, grading, signs, and finally lighting. In order to grant a conditional use permit, the City Council shall find the proposed use is consistent with the general plan, will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, and complies with the zoning ordinance. With that, staff recommends that the council conduct a public hearing, find the project exempt from CEQA, and if the council can make the requisite findings, then adopt resolution 2026-006, conditionally approving a mod and SDP to construct the dining area deck expansion at 1505 Loma Santa Fe. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, John. Well done. I'm gonna open the public hearing, and we'll go first to disclosures. I'm very familiar with the location. I have not spoken with the applicant or any nearby neighbors. Deputy Mayor McDonald.
I am also very familiar with the country club, as I've been a member on and off since 1988. I did have a conversation with the general manager, Ted Axe, months ago before the story poles were erected, just in general, about the project and what it was going to look like.
Very good.
I have not spoken to anyone else.
Very good. Councilmember Zito.
I have not spoken to the project applicant or any members of the public about this project. I have, a long time ago when my kids were little, was a social membership of the club for the use of the pool, but that's been over a decade ago at this point now.
I'm familiar with the location. I've not spoken with anybody regarding the project. I viewed the story poles yesterday and on multiple occasions over the time that they've been up. I am a longtime dues-paying member of Loma Santa Fe Country Club. It's not an equity club, so I have no financial interest and am able to make an unbiased, evidence-based decision.
Very good. Councilmember.
Yes, I'm familiar with the property. I'm not a member, but I do enjoy playing pickleball there. And I've not spoken to the applicant or any members of the public.
Very good. Any questions? I have a couple questions, John. So the first parking, on the parking little grid there, You said that in 1991, 162 were required, but there were 212. So then I'm gathering that our code changed and there was a requirement for more parking. Was that 212? Or is there a surplus or deficit even up there in 1991 after that?
So in 1991, the parking regulations were consistent with the previous county zoning regulations. So yes, in 1991, it was applied for and approved by the city council, but it was the same parking requirements as the previous county zoning ordinance, which I believe was 1 space per 450 square feet of solely the clubhouse. After 1991 is when it switched to requiring parking for each of the uses on site, including the courts and stuff like that.
Okay, so then in 1994, that 212 was not adequate. And so that they
Correct.
needed to provide 9 more. Okay, all right, okay. And then the other question that I have is if you can go back to the overhead shot, there's a grassy kind of triangular area that I know I've seen cars there parked before. Where it's right, that little guy, yeah. Okay, just wanted to, and there is access, I'm gathering, given I've seen cars parked there before, from the parking lot to that area. Okay. All right, those are all my questions. Deputy Mayor, do you have any questions? McDonald? I think that's no questions. All right, it's time for the applicant to speak. Do we have any speakers besides the applicant on this item? No? Okay. You have 15 minutes. There are no other folks here to speak, so you can use all 15 minutes or you don't have to.
Thank you, Mayor Hibner. I appreciate you, council members, staff. Thank you for your service. This is a great community, and it's just great to be a part of it. Loma Santa Fe Country Club has been integral to the community since 1968, when the developer, Ted Gildred, built the club and 1,500 homes around it. And it's been a great opportunity for me as general manager for the last 11 years, and I'm just really proud to work there. The patio was added at a later time than the original clubhouse, which actually was finished in 1971. Patio now is 30 years old, and really the genesis for this project is that it's an all-wood patio structure, and it's seeing wood deterioration, and it needs to be rebuilt. So we believe that while we demo and rebuild it, which we need to do anyway, that we should expand it to just capture a really nice view to the ocean and provide a wonderful dining amenity to all of our members. The club has been very fortunate in that we are full in every membership category with wait lists to get in, and we've preserved the quality of the service and the experience there by not expanding the membership cap, and we don't intend to do that. So it's our belief that while we are proposing to expand our patio, that doesn't mean there's going to be a rush of more business that might come in there, which would require more parking and et cetera. Being there 11 years, I can tell you that the parking is adequate, more than adequate on any given day. I believe the study that I did personally over a 4-month period, I think that my number was 74 spaces on average that was open and available. And it's pretty rare that we actually get so full. And normally if we were full, it's because we did an outside event. Mayor Hibner, you did point out nicely that there is that triangular piece of real estate there that's adjacent to our tennis courts. We do use that on a rare occasion for staff parking. And my estimation, it can hold about 14 spaces if we needed to use it. Our preference would be to keep it green space because I think it's nicer for the neighborhood. And we find members and residents just walking their dogs through there from time to time. We have a great owner. Sanyo Foods has owned the club since 1990. They're a little bit of a silent owner, but they continue to invest in the club. I think that projects like this are great to modernize it, create more safety and accessibility for our members, and just be part of a wonderful recreational lifestyle in the beautiful Solana Beach. So that's just my background. I'm happy to field any questions if you might have some.
Thank you. Councilmember Zito has a question.
Yeah, thanks for the discussion. I appreciate it. I did just notice as part of your argument that you were, for not providing additional parking, you were saying that it's not an expansion of the dining area, it's a relocation of the dining area. So where you're relocating from, what will that space be used for at this
Yeah,
point?
just thank you. Good question. It's a higher use of an outdoor space as opposed to our indoor spaces. For those of you who are very familiar with the club, we have an indoor main dining room, and while it's a nice indoor conditioned space, it's not as modern and a nice view as what that patio has. And again, with the fact that our membership is capped, we're not adding more members. We're just going to open up an opportunity for more of them to be able to enjoy outdoor dining.
Okay, thanks. But you'll keep the indoor dining area?
Yes, we are.
Clearly.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not changing that.
I was just confused by that. Thanks.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Ted.
Yeah, thank
may
you so
have a
much.
seat. Okay, I'd like a motion, please, to close the public hearing. Motion by Edson, second by Zito. Can you please call the vote?
Sorry. Mayor Huebner,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Zito,
Zito, yes.
Councilmember Edson,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing is closed. Time for council deliberation. Councilmember Edson.
Yes, so being a longtime member of the club, even though I don't go very often, my husband goes every day. But we do on occasion eat there, and we do on occasion attend events there, especially around holidays and stuff. I can say the times that I've used the existing patio, it's not a very efficient space right now. So in addition to the fact that it's old and tired and needs to be redone because of maybe termites or those sort of things, I think this will be a really big improvement to the club itself, aesthetically. Right now it's a long, skinny space, which really doesn't accommodate people well. I think this will be a big improvement, and in looking at it, it looks tall when you're down lower, but in viewing it from out on Loma Santa Fe and on Highland, it doesn't seem unreasonable at all to me. And with regard to the parking, I do buy into the argument presented by Mr. Axe, I believe, that I know my husband goes and swims, then he goes to the gym, then he goes to the clubhouse for free coffee. And so he uses three things with parking once. He's not coming 3 times to the club. He's using multiple services at the same time. So I do think that that's probably true. I don't expect there to be a great difference in the parking and for it to overflow. Also, I've never not been able to park there, even when there are large events going on. So that's a personal experience. But should that happen in the future because of our change, I think that it would be incumbent upon us to maybe ask the applicant if, gee, we start getting complaints from the neighbors that there's overparking, that we be able to come back and revisit this and talk about the triangle space then. But I like it as green space now.
Very good. Would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve staff's
Huebner?
recommendation.
She's her hand up. McDonald.
Oh, thank you. We'll get to you next.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you. You'd like to make the motion, and you would like to add in the condition that should that be a condition, City Attorney?
Yes, in this particular case, if we would need that trigger, so you
Okay.
are, however you want to craft it, should there be complaints, or I think Joe and the city manager understood, and we will draft the condition accordingly.
Okay, great. Then we'll come back to council. Okay, we'll go to Deputy Mayor McDonald. Would you like to second that while we're?
Yes,
Thank you.
I would like to second that motion and probably just say some of the same things that Jewel said. I've been a member of the club for a long time. I've never been unable to find a parking space within the existing parking. And I think when there was language talking about how it's changing the space, I think the truth is over the decades that I've been a member, the needs of the members have changed. The formal dining room is not what people want anymore. It's a very family-oriented club. People want to eat casually, and the idea that both the formal dining room and the patio space are going to be crowded at the same time is probably not how the club is being used currently by its members. And so I don't see that there's going to be a parking problem, but if there is, we can always revisit it.
Very good. Councilmember Becker.
Yes, well said. I just want to echo the same thing. I think it's a great use of that space. Everyone loves a deck. And every time I go there, I've always been able to find a parking space, so I'm not worried about that as well. And I have to confess, I was a member at some point because I remember I was on the Loma Santa Fe swim team in 4th grade. So-
There you go. Councilmember Zito.
Yeah, thanks. I'm also fully supportive of the project. I think it's a great addition to the club facility. So look forward to you guys being able to do that. I mean, the parking one, I think I appreciate the condition that Councilmember Edson is, because you never know what's going to happen. But where you are right now, there's only really a couple properties across the street. There's a lot of street parking as well. It doesn't really impact anybody there. The multi-use argument, not quite as convinced, because if I go to the gym and I go to a restaurant, I'm staying there twice as long as well, as opposed to just doing one or the other. So there is some mixed-use benefit, but I do think we have a lot of options here, and it is in a less parking-impacted area of the city, where if this is on Cedros, that'd be another story. But anyway,
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Very good. I'm supportive of all the comments that I've heard. I'm able to make all of the findings, so I will call the vote. In fact, the city clerk will call the vote.
Mayor Hebner,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Zito,
Zito, yes.
Councilmember Edson,
Edson, yes.
Councilmember Becker.
Yes.
Thank you. 5-0.
Very good. 5-0. Congratulations. You're welcome. All right, we're on to our second public hearing of the evening. City Manager.
Yes, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, public. We have tonight a continued item, public hearing on 121 West Plaza Street. The item is with applicant David Urich, and the project is a DUP, a DRP, and an SDP. With that, I'll turn it over to Senior Planner Katie Benson to present.
Thank you. Good evening. As introduced, this is a continued public hearing for the addition of a second-floor live-work unit requested by the applicant, Dr. David Urich, at 121 West Plaza Street. The project was first heard by the council on November 19th of last year, and the council shared concerns regarding a lack of integration and access between the dental office and the proposed live-work unit, the size and massing of the proposed trellises, potential increased structural load on adjacent buildings, and construction impacts related to staging and parking. The council continued the public hearing date certain to January 14th of this year, and again on the 14th to tonight's meeting. Since the original November 2025 proposal, the applicant has submitted a revised project and additional information. The project changes include relocating and enclosing the staircase, reducing the size of the trellises, and the proposed changes include 2 areas that project outside the 3-dimensional envelope of the original story poles, and therefore the applicant is requesting an SDP waiver for those areas. And lastly, the applicant has also submitted additional construction details for your consideration. I'll go through some of the proposed project changes. The previously proposed exterior stairs at the rear of the property were removed, and a new enclosed staircase has been proposed at the northwest corner of the property. The original trellis design wrapped around the live-work unit, and the revised design includes trellises located at the front and rear of the unit. The new interior staircase provides direct access from the live-work unit to the interior of the dental office and the Plaza Street frontage. The trellises were reduced in width to align with the front and rear of the unit and are proposed to be cantilevered 8 feet from the unit. The rear deck was also reconfigured by pulling away from the rear property line by 2 feet and expanding 2 feet to the west. The northern front half of the story poles were updated to reflect the revised project before you tonight, but the poles, and those poles are identified in red. The remaining poles through the southern rear portion of the site remain in the original and certified configuration and are primarily over-story poling or exaggerating the 3-dimensional envelope of the revised project, except for 2 areas. As I mentioned, there are two areas in the revised design that would project outside of the original story pole envelope, which is shown in blue on these plans. So these are where the original story poles were located. The enclosed staircase would be located below a previously story-poled trellis. Since the staircase is solid massing and the trellis was open, this area technically is outside of that three-dimensional envelope. Also, as I mentioned, the rear deck was pulled back from the rear property line and then shifted 2 feet to the west. This new second-story deck area is also located outside of the story pole envelope. And the applicant has requested an SDP waiver to waive the requirement for an additional 30-day SDP notice to be mailed to adjacent neighbors. The council also requested the applicant provide various construction-related details. The additional information provided by the applicant regarding the structural, existing structural details of the dental office, it clarifies that the exploratory work to determine if the east and west walls are shared party walls or independent of each other. That work was not completed. Instead, the applicant's structural engineer provided a proposal to construct new structurally independent walls within the existing dental office to avoid adding a potential structural weight to the existing walls. And on the ground level floor plan, there's notes saying if it was not determined. So it sounds like the applicant is still open to potentially doing that exploratory work, but is given two options. Either they do the exploratory work, determine if they're structurally independent, or move forward with just constructing the second floor addition completely independent of those exterior walls. The applicant also provided an estimated construction timeline consistent with the anticipated conditions from the Coastal Commission. The City Council expressed interest in prohibiting construction staging on public property during the summer months between Memorial Day and Labor Day. The applicant provided this estimated timeline that ranges between 36 and 46 weeks. So there potentially could be the need to relocate staging and parking during a portion of the project. And then the applicant provided a construction, parking, and staging plan. They're proposing to utilize 3 parking spaces immediately north of the property in the public Plaza Street parking lot and the adjacent frontage for parking and staging, as well as utilization of a portion of the easement on 118 South Acacia for access. So the project is subject to the structure development permit, and the original story poles were certified. They went through the 30-day notice to neighbors, and no applications for view assessment were received. However, the council could not make the findings to approve based on that original project. The project was revised, and the northern half of the story poles were modified and certified. The applicant is requesting an SDP waiver for 2 areas that encroach outside of the original certified story pole envelope. And the council could approve the waiver if it can be found that the areas associated with the waiver would not potentially impair scenic views from nearby residential properties. The second permit that they're required to obtain for this scope of work is the DRP, and you're familiar with these findings, that the project is consistent with the development, the general plan and zoning criteria and the development review criteria, that all permits and approvals have been obtained prior to or concurrently with the DRP, and that if the project is approved, that the applicant obtain authorization from the Coastal Commission. And lastly, the live work unit requires a DUP, and in order to approve a DUP, the council must make 3 findings: that the proposed use is in accord with the general plan, the general intent of this title, and the purposes of the zone in which the site is located; that the proposed use, together with the conditions applicable thereto, would not be detrimental to the public health, safety, welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity; and that the proposed use complies with each of the applicable provisions of the zoning ordinance unless a variance is granted. So staff's recommendation is that you continue conducting the public hearing, find the project exempt from CEQA, and if you can make the findings, then adopt Resolution 2026-013, conditionally approving a DRP, SDP, and DUP to construct a second-story live-work unit at 121 West Plaza Street. And that concludes my presentation, but I will note that this is a continued public hearing, so there weren't additional notices mailed out to the public. However, staff has contacted during the course of since your November meeting with adjacent neighbors that expressed concerns with the project previously. We've met with them, shared the plans, and explained and kept them apprised of what's been going on with the revised project.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, the public hearing is open, as has been stated. We'll go to any additional disclosures. My disclosure is that I visited the property to the east. Excuse me. The Grant Fletcher property, I did not see Grant Fletcher there. His agent showed me around. I did not really speak to her either. I just viewed the property and the views from there. Deputy Mayor McDonald, any additional disclosures?
Nothing additional since the last meeting.
And down the line, please.
Okay. Yeah, so I had an email exchange with a representative of Grant Fletcher named Chris Bomer, I believe, offering to do another viewing. And I noted in response that I had actually already done a viewing previously and felt that that was adequate. And that's all the interactions I've had since the last meeting.
I also received an email from Mr. Fletcher's agent inviting me to view the project story poles from Mr. Fletcher's property. Since I was unavailable on the dates and times offered, I declined the invitation. I have driven past since the story poles were revised on a number of occasions, but most recently yesterday.
Very good.
And I haven't spoken with any members of the public or the applicant about the project.
I also visited Mr. Fletcher's property on, I believe it was right before Christmas, and did not speak with Mr. Fletcher, but his agent was there.
Very good. Okay, any questions on this revised plan by council? I see no questions. Okay, we'll go to the applicant. You can speak for up to 15 minutes. And how many speakers do we have? One speaker, okay.
One speaker, and if you have questions, we will possibly bring up our architect. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, Marco Gonzalez with Coast Law Group on behalf of Dr. Urich. I would like to just hit a couple of issues here. I believe Katie hit all the relevant ones. Why am I not going forward? Bottom one? Nope. Oh, we'll try one more. Oh, there we go. So as was noted, there's been significant revisions to the project. I'm going to run through those that we heard from the council and tell you a little bit about what we did, although I think most of it was covered by Katie. Obviously, we reduced significantly the bulk that was identified with respect to the trellises. We did a complete facade redesign to remove the vertical steel supports, and the new cantilevered trellis extends out 8 feet from the building edge, but all of the prior supports have been removed. Of course, probably the largest change was the removal of the rear exterior staircase. That eliminated the 10-foot setback issue, and it also significantly addressed our neighbors' concerns with the permanent use of the pedestrian easement to access a second floor loft. The new enclosed access at the northwest corner takes access onto Plaza, and it did result in a reduction in square footage because we had to accommodate that vestibule at the top of the stairway, but it was deemed a better project by all involved, and so we were happy to do that. With respect to construction timing, now I know that the level of specificity that we were able to provide suggests that 36 weeks is the shortest amount of time that this could be done. We're very confident that that is a very conservative amount. Without detailed plans, without construction materials identified, we asked them to just give us, the most conservative estimation that you could. We're confident that if we begin shortly after Labor Day, that we will be done by the springtime. We have provided a preliminary staging plan that utilizes up to 3 spaces immediately in front of Dr. Urich's dental office. I would note that the dental office will be closed during this time, and these are the same 3 spaces that are typically used by the customers of the dental office. So we don't see it being a net detriment, but we're going to do everything we can to minimize the use of those spaces. because we know they're valuable to our customers. We would also note that if we really wanted to address the use of parking spaces in this lot, if the city would up its enforcement, we noticed that there's a lot of employees of a lot of the businesses that utilize that lot regularly and they shift their cars around. And we think if we're really looking out for the visitors who might want to access the beach and the businesses, it's the employees that really utilize that more than others. There was some discussion about the annual worker verification. I just wanted to remind you that there is a condition in the proposed resolution that would ensure that the resident of the Live Work Loft would be a worker of the business downstairs. With respect to the common wall structural engineering, our engineers told us that we would have to do some destructive testing, some drilling into the wall to ensure that it wasn't a shared wall, and Mr. Fletcher did not respond to requests for access to do that, so we moved forward with the prospect of constructing our project entirely within the four corners of the existing walls. So that's why it was identified in the plans that if we continue to be unable to coordinate some sort of a drill test to ensure that those walls are sufficient, we'll just build it all interior. One of the important things that I want to hit on is that we not only removed the vertical supports for the trellis, but we actually shifted the second floor building back. So now there's 12 foot, 3.5 inches of clearance from the edge of that building and the northern facade, whereas previously 9 foot, 3 inches. So that's a 3 foot difference, which we think is meaningful to the view from that northwest window of Mr. Fletcher's building. And importantly, we also added an additional foot of width on that eastern side. It went from 3 feet to 4 feet, and that's reflected also in the shift of the entire second floor westward, that additional amount. And then, of course, there were the private easement civil issues. We received contact from our neighbors to the south asking that we not utilize the pedestrian access way for construction, and we don't believe that's a reasonable request given our pedestrian easement. And we think that they are benefiting significantly based on the issues they've raised and our redesign of the project stairway. So that's a civil matter that we can resolve in court if necessary, but we don't believe it's within the city's purview to condition us not to use an easement that we're duly allowed to use. So that being said, you saw this comparison. I'm going to throw some other comparisons up there and just point to a couple different pieces to make sure that we're all seeing on the plans just how much we did change. Obviously, this shows the trellis changes, but if you look at the arrows that are coming up on the right, we show the new entryway on Plaza Street. We see the vestibule from the new stairway on the second story. We also see the elimination of the vertical controls at the corners of the trellis. And importantly, this area here is significantly opened up. With respect to the northwest facade, I would point your attention first on the left-hand side again, that area where Mr. Fletcher's northwest window looks out over the patio is opened up. You can see the vestibule up against the western side. It really doesn't impact anybody from that area. And then, of course, the vertical supports on the rear trellis have also been removed, which is an additional benefit to anyone viewing from that side of the structure. When looking at the back, this is a fairly dramatic change. You'll note that the entire southwest corner is different, both the removal of the trellis supports and the relocation of the stairway. And from this view, we would note, again, you have a much more open front area. You can see the vestibule there, the elimination of the trellis support and the elimination of the stairway, the movement of that edge of the patio back from the property line a couple feet. And I also want to focus for a minute on this area right here. You'll recall that we talked about the location of the new mini air conditioning unit, the mini split, in this location adjacent to the stairwell that is on the eastern property. One thing I would point out, our architectural rendering of that window is not actually correct. That window that's on Mr. Fletcher's building, and I'll show you in a subsequent picture. Now it's actually much more to the north than it's represented. This is a picture of when some work was being done on Mr. Fletcher's building and he utilized Dr. Urich's roof. This is the size of the original traditional commercial air conditioning unit. You can see as it was originally placed, or as it exists today, it is directly next to that window. It is essentially right outside of it. This size of commercial air conditioning unit emits sound at a 70 to 80 decibel reading. The unit that we're looking to install is called a mini split. This one by LG is the typical one used. It's going to be placed away from the window, as I'll show you in a minute. And the decibel readings of this is 45 to 58 decibels, which is akin to the average inter-office kind of level of noise that you would have people regularly conversing. So this shows us, we eliminated that window, so you can see the window's actually much farther up, adjacent to the structure, and the small unit would be placed there in the corner with significantly less noise and not adjacent to the usable area of the building, but rather next to the stairwell. So in summary and conclusion, we worked diligently and quickly with staff after the November hearing. We got caught up in the holidays and were unable to get the information flow in time to meet the original hearing date, but we really did our diligence with our architects to change the internal access and stair redesign to try to get Mr. Fletcher available when he wasn't. We just took care of all the structural issues internally. Very difficult during the holidays to get contractors to give us what we needed on the staging and the timeline, but we did our best, and we think we came out with a defensible estimation. And of course, the trellis redesign, which I think significantly decreases the bulk and scale, the apparent bulk, and moving it back a couple of feet will give it even a greater articulation and decrease that impact. As with the original project and as reflected in the draft resolution, we think we can meet all DRP, SDP, and DUP findings. And I would note there are two locations where, one in the resolution and one on our cover page, where we and the city mistakenly wrote 704 as our square footage as opposed to 679, which is the accurate reduction in square footage. In case anyone saw that, I just want to point it out. We believe we are consistent with the general plan, the specific plan, the LCP, zoning, and all design standards, and we hope you can approve the project tonight. We're available for questions, and as I mentioned, we have one of our architects, Peter Barroso, here to field any questions as well.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Deputy Mayor, any question?
Thank you.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Marco. Have a seat. Let's call the next. Oh, how many minutes? Just
Two speakers.
okay. 2 speakers.
5 minutes.
Yes, 5 minutes left. Okay. Please call the first speaker.
And our first speaker is Grant Fletcher.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Grant Fletcher, 115 Plaza. I continue my opposition to this project for a number of reasons. I don't want to do it, come back to it ad nauseum, but some of these I just want to drive home. I'll make it short as I can. I still believe that this project is a very inconsistent look with, and the intent, it really defies the intent of the 101 specific plan and the live-work concept as it was originally drawn. Obviously, it destroys a lot of the views in the building. We have 4 windows. We may retain a little bit, but the verdict's out. I can't really tell by most of the schematics I've looked at, but it doesn't appear with the story poles that it's changed our views, even one window, which I had hoped to retain. So I'm hopeful, but I can't really tell completely. One thing, of course, that's brought up is compromising our structural integrity. That is a huge concern. I believe they've addressed that. I was not contacted prior about the core drilling concept into my building, but I was certainly opposed to that concept if that was on the table. I know they described another option of building up an internal wall downstairs, so so be it. Obviously, there's a potential hardship with business, tenants, and so forth, disruption of business for everyone. I'm very skeptical of a realistic construction plan and the oversight of that. Obviously, that will affect easements and adjacent tenants. we still ask to maintain our view in our front window, like I said, if this is approved. I certainly would hope that that one is maintained as much as possible, and it's a huge concern for us. Our new tenants that we have finally managed to get in have already voiced a lot of concern. Unfortunately, they weren't able to come this evening. Bottom line here is, once again, there's one beneficiary to the detriment of really all the adjacent property owners, and virtually really no effect on aiding housing mandates that I know the city is trying to follow. I really challenge that in part of this. Finally, from my perspective, there's a lot of possible unknown fallout from all this. Financial, possibly, with our tenants. Certainly the structural is a huge thing. By my estimation of, excuse me, of this is because of those unknowns, there may be some repercussions to both the applicant and or the endorsing party here. I know that there'll be a number of other tenants and nearby neighbors that are going to have a similar
Grant,
view
your
on
time's
this.
up. If you could conclude, please.
Anyways, that is my conclusion. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. The next speaker, please.
John Niederhofer.
Good evening. Thank you for your service. And I do want to again mention the accessibility, responsiveness of staff has been exemplary. We had two concerns as I'm sorry, I am speaking on behalf of the property, what is that, the south. And we have two concerns, both related to the easement. One has been seemingly quite well addressed by moving the stairwell out onto Plaza. So we appreciate, acknowledge, and are pleased to see that. The second concern is the construction disruption as relates to the use of the easement. And I don't think that's been addressed. In the last go-round of this dialogue, I believe I heard council members ask the applicant to reach out to us to try and work through what our concerns are and attempt to resolve them. That didn't happen. We reached affirmatively out to them recently and got back a pretty aggressive response that the use of the easement, instead of just for pedestrian use, incidental to just the dental practice, contemplates construction use without seeming restriction for a change of use of the property. And that came with a direct threat of litigation if we protested. So my appeal with what appears to be an optimistic construction timeline to the council is what happens if something slips past the 9 months? The city probably is not going to entertain going into the holiday season, and that is going to put a burden on the easement for access to continue the construction, is my speculation. Noting that concern, we would appeal to the council. And by the way, that staging area that I saw and appreciated for the first time, I didn't see that or wasn't aware of it, or we didn't see that page when we talked to staff. That is how the business operations are conducted through. So pallets of materials are delivered and carry through. So that yellow area in that easement for storing or staging of materials, it's already going to seriously disrupt our tenant. If it goes past 9 months, that disruption will become magnified tremendously, is my concern. And we'd ask the city council to please go through the what-if exercise. If this leaks past the 9-month projection, what does the construction plan look like? And task the applicant to give thorough, robust details rather than just default to thrusting us into an inevitable threatened litigation. We don't want that. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I'll go right to staff because I know that this is actually a civil matter, But the other part of the question is what happens to the easement and stuff in the front, in the public parking spaces, if this goes past 9 months?
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, there has been a new condition added. I think if you refer to page 15 of your resolution, under the engineering conditions, Roman numeral V or 5, includes additional parameters for construction, very similar to other projects that we are reviewing and have permitted. It does limit to the off-season, so if there is staging done, it needs to be moved between May and end of September. And I'm looking at the engineering director. And that there will need to be a license with the city for use of any city-owned property for staging. So that will, and an EMRA. So those give us some ability to have further coordination and, the use of the city's property very close to the coast and in the coastal zone. Anything
Okay.
else,
Anything
staff,
to
to
add?
add to that?
So the condition currently is very general. One addition could potentially be to recognize Fiesta del Sol as well as Memorial Day. So we could highlight those as part of the condition as well.
That would be advised, yes.
We can make that fine point.
Okay. Councilman Bredesen, did you have something to add or have a question?
Yes, so what I was hearing in the question from Mr. Niederhofer was what happens if they go beyond the projected 9 months period? And yes, we're saying you have to move the staging, but how is that enforced? And, is there a way to enforce that?
We have construction requirements in our municipal code, and I see both the city attorney and the community development director available to answer more.
Well, I was going to say, so if they're still doing work, they would have to find an alternative location for staging outside of that area. And we would require them to remove that. We'd notify them ahead of time, obviously, before the deadline. And it would be a condition of the encroachment permit as well. So staff would be monitoring that as it gets closer to whatever date ends up being the selected date and conditioned. I do want to note, though, the condition currently reads they could only do the construction from November to April. I heard October possibly, or September after Labor Day. So I don't know if the council wants to consider some alternative dates. That is what staff drafted at this point, but you could modify those if you feel it is necessary to give them greater length of time, because between the November 1 and roughly May 1 is actually less than the 9 months that they've outlined in their construction phasing.
It's so hard these days because, as we were just talking about earlier, on Martin Luther King Day, it was the busiest day at the beach that we have seen in a long, long time. So I'll let the council weigh in on what the dates would be, but I think our concern is clear, and that is we have clearly more crowds during the summer months when kids are on vacation. And I guess with all your school rounds, sometimes that goes into October, but I'm not sure about that. Did I see nobody else on the board? Deputy Mayor, did you have any questions? No, I don't think she has any. Okay.
Mayor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In this particular case, as presented to you.
You may have a seat, Marco. We haven't called you. Okay.
As conditioned and as presented to you, there is not a 9-month time frame. That was a conceptual schedule that was presented to you. We're not necessarily limiting them to that 9 months, provided they can meet the condition that was before you in the resolution. And I also wanted to highlight there was a lot of talk about enforcement. As you know, within the DRP and within the resolution, there's an enforcement provision that allows the city to actually exercise its enforcement options under Chapter 1 of our municipal code. We certainly hope that's not going to be the case, but that is a tool in our tool belt that we can use should it become necessary. But I just wanted to make sure and set the expectations that is not limited to the 9 months. It was a conceptual schedule that was presented to you.
Okay. I'm going to ask Marco to come up. You have 5 minutes to respond to what you have heard.
Thank you. I want to hit this one really quickly. Let's remember there's a difference between staging and parking. And let's also remember that we have a 12-foot deck at the front of the second story structure. By the time we get to the tail end and we're dealing with finishes and we need to store anything, we have a pretty substantial area on the second floor where we can put the type of equipment that we would be using at that point. Now, would we be parking in the public lot? Would we be unloading from the public lot? I don't think that's what we mean by construction staging. I think construction staging, we think about fenced off areas, pallets of materials that are in the right of way that we had to get a permit for or something like that. So I just want to be clear that while we're talking about this prospect of staging being necessary at the end of the process, we believe by the time we get to, that last month or whatever it is, we're going to be upstairs, we're going to be interior, we're going to be doing all the finish work. So that being said, let's also remember we have to go to the Coastal Commission to get either a CDP or a waiver, and we believe that they will have conditions, as they always do, about beach access. And we have always, in our experience, heard them say that, with our projects, that my other clients' projects, we do actually down on the beach between Labor Day and Memorial Day is when they like to see, the public have its greatest access. Now, with respect to the prior commenters, I would note I just looked at a text message from Dr. Urich to Grant Fletcher on January 5th at 5:15 p.m., letting him know that he'd spoken with the structural and could he please give me a call. He also left him a voicemail. So for whatever it is. If you could pull up my presentation real quickly, I just want to talk about the easement, which again is perfectly civil matter. What we were told by the owners to the south is, hey, if you want us to not come and oppose you, you have to agree today to not do any construction access. And it's like, that's just not a reasonable request. And he talks about how they use it for moving pallets in and out. Well, I want to show you what they actually do because we caught it on video. And right after our last hearing, let me get through my presentation because I did include one photograph in here. And sorry. So you see the pallets. This is from a Ring camera taken down. This is actually a violation of our easement rights. They regularly take delivery of their pallets of equipment, and for hours until they get the chance to move it into their storage facility, it sits in our easement. And you'll note the location of our rear door. It restricts our access to our rear door, and that is actually a fire hazard. We're not here saying, hey, guys, we want to sue you over the fact that you're not respecting our 10-foot pedestrian access easement. And we're not going in and telling you to rip out your landscape, which is built into our access easement. And if you look at what we're going to propose to do with our fencing, the yellow fencing that's on our construction staging plan, that's entirely on our property. All we're proposing to use the access easement for is people walking in. There will be a point where someone might park over in the distillery lot, and it might make sense for them to walk through the easement and in the back door of the dentist's office over to the stairway. The fact that our stairway is now in the front to the second floor means 99% of the construction impacts that they were concerned of, it doesn't make sense for us to take stuff from the back anymore. Why would we do that? What are we going to drop a rope down from the back and lift buckets up over the patio? It just doesn't make sense. But that being said, if they are concerned, if they don't believe that we have the right to have pedestrian construction access through that easement, we can resolve that in court. It's a civil matter between two people. You just bring a quiet title action for declaratory relief, and the court says, yeah, you know what? You can or you can't. But at the end of the day, we have access from the front under the current plan. We have stairway access from the front, and we don't think that it's an issue that needs to be conditioned or addressed by the city in a final consideration. We're available for any questions, and I hope you can approve us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other questions. I see no other questions. Okay. All right. Okay, council. Motion to close the public hearing. Councilmember Zito.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Very good. And may I have a second by Councilmember Becker? Okay, City Clerk, can you call the vote, please?
Mayor Hibner,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Zito,
Zito, yes.
Councilmember Edson,
Edson, yes?
Councilmember Becker.
Yes.
Thank you. 5-0.
All right, we were chatting. Councilmember Edson.
Yes, so moving beyond the construction part of this and that discussion, I have a couple of concerns, things that aren't covered actually in the resolution. So that interior door, there are now 2 doors into the building. On the street side, on the north side, one into the dentist's office directly and one into to access the stairway up to the live work. And then there's a door that goes between that vestibule to that stairway that would go into the dentist's office. So in order to maintain the live work status, I think it's important that a condition be placed that the interior door between the stairway to the live work unit and office shall not be blocked. You know, people have a tendency to close doors and instead put a piece of furniture there or that sort of thing. That shouldn't be allowed for all of the reasons, you know, being live work. I also have a concern about, you know, hearing everything that I've heard in these last meetings, that no objects, furnishings, or plants be placed in front of Mr. Fletcher's northwest window that would block any view that he has from that northwest window. You know, we often, in the past with second story, third story decks, have conditioned that things really don't exceed the height of railings that are permanent. I don't know if that's necessary here. I leave that to my colleagues to discuss, but I think it's really important that we don't have plants that grow in front of that window, that we don't have surfboards leaned against that window, that we don't have anything like that that occurs that would block that northwest window, because that's kind of the only source of light, I think, in there at that point.
Yeah, good
And
point.
view.
Thank you. Councilmember Zito?
Oh, thanks. Didn't want to get into the construction stuff yet. No, I don't. We're talking about everything at this point, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, yeah. So, you know, first, I believe I concur with my colleagues' points. They seem pretty well thought out. Just from the perspective, you know, I just want to start by saying I acknowledge that this project will have impacts. It definitely has impacts. Projects like this always have impacts, and we have to balance individuals' right to improve their property against the findings that we're able to make to make sure that it's done appropriately. And this one is undoubtedly going to have some impacts, but I believe that a lot of the changes that have been made have addressed the concerns that I had expressed, and I very much appreciate, in particular, the relocation of the stairway and making that available from the front instead of from the rear. My biggest concerns remain around the public access and the beach parking and that space. I think it's come up with a reasonable plan. You know, staff's consideration of the timing. I have no idea what this project would look like going forward, but I do think we need to be very concrete that for the window that we decide upon, there can't be any blocked off parking at that period of time. And because this is a very popular area for that access. And, you know, my view as someone, and I won't make a motion yet because I'm curious to hear my colleagues' views, but as someone who does go to the beach every day and someone who is in this area every day, it seems like the busiest period for us that needs to be protected or would be basically from either Memorial Day weekend or Fiesta del Sol, whichever occurs first, because Fiesta del Sol is a hugely important event for us. So we need to have access to this area all the way through to, I'd say, October 1st. Once we hit, you know, we do have we do have our local summer, I guess is what we like to call it, which is, I mean, usually September is one of the busiest months down here, and but it dies off quickly after that, and just from personal experience and the way I see even our lifeguard engagement as well. So, you know, that'd be kind of the window I would be thinking about, is making sure that the parking lot was clear from either Memorial Day weekend or Fiesta del Sol, which whenever was first, all the way through until October 1st, and making sure that there wasn't any parking spots blocked off at that point. But otherwise, I believe at this point I'm in a place understanding that this is a project will have notable impacts to people, but I think relative to the findings that we have to make, I would be able to make all the other findings with the conversation we've had so far.
Thank you. I'm in concurrence with those dates. I think that's good. Yes.
Through the mayor, so having been on the chamber in the past and helped with Fiesta del Sol and been part of it, they need a good week before Fiesta actually occurs.
So the week before
because they've got
Fiesta
to wash
or-
everything up. You know,
It's true.
they have a lot of equipment coming in to
For some reason, that's what I
it.
thought the council member said was a week before. No, you didn't say a week before?
It was including
Whatever
the
comes first.
Yeah,
Fiesta
whatever
or
comes
Memorial.
first. Yeah, was my I don't know if it would be a week. I mean, I see it set up every year. It's usually a couple of days before they'll start staging their material. I don't know that it's a whole week, but yeah.
Yeah,
something like
they
that.
bring, before they start staging materials, they bring in power washing, all of that sort of stuff to clean everything up.
Okay, so we'll do a week before Memorial Day weekend or Fiesta del Sol, whichever comes earlier, to the end of September, so that the 1st of October is free. Okay, all right. Councilmember Becker, you had another comment?
I do. I think that those are thoughtful comments, and I think that we could do that. But I also do want to say that I really appreciate you guys taking all our suggestions to heart, and I think it's a much better project. I think the scaling that back in the front really made a huge difference, and the staircase location makes a huge difference. But like Councilmember Zito said, you have to acknowledge that there are impacts to the side building. I mean, it's disappointing when you have this beautiful open light coming in and you can see down to, you know, the ocean or whatever. So it's super disappointing then to be in those rooms where they're blocked off. So you do have to acknowledge that. But again, we do have to balance that. And I really appreciate what you guys you took that to heart and you did all of those changes, and I appreciate that. And I can make the findings with the extra additional things that it sounds like are pretty easy to do.
Councilmember Edson, did you want to outline those that you wanted to put in again specifically?
Yes, from my scribbled meeting notes. One, to maintain the live-work status, the interior door between the stairway to the live-work unit and office shall not be blocked.
So inside the dental office?
Right, so you've got a door
Right
that
there.
goes into the dentist's office. You've got a door that
that's
goes
there,
into
yeah.
the stairway. And then when you enter the door that goes to the live-work stairway, there's another door over here
yeah, lots of
that goes into the dentist office. That makes it live-work so that they don't have to go outside
go in,
to
yeah.
get upstairs to the live-work. By blocking that door, it would really not.
How are we going to identify that door? Do you have some phrasing, Katie or Joe?
We call it the interior door at the front of the live work and the commercial business.
Okay, you'll know how to phrase that. Okay,
Okay.
all right, and then?
And then no objects, furnishings, or plants be placed on the northwest patio in front of Mr. Fletcher's northwest window
Okay.
to avoid blocking views
And just,
and light.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you'd be willing, through the mayor, if you'd be willing to just say that are taller than the rail height?
Yes,
Because
that's fine.
just to make sure that it's not
Sure.
any object?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Knowing how this is going? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, very
Yeah.
good. And you're up, is that what you wanted
Yeah,
to say?
so I'd be happy to take what you just described, taller than the rail height, and also then modify the the conditions of the resolution for the staged parking only to be from a week before Memorial Day weekend or Fiesta del Sol, whichever comes first, through September 30th would be the dates. With that, I'd be happy to make a motion to adopt that resolution 2026-113 with those conditions, find the project exempt from CEQA, and approve staff recommendation. And at the end of that, I would also like to just say that your architect needs to advertise his services in this town. I've never seen someone turn anything around so quick. I've done this a lot. Very impressive to get this turned around that quickly.
Yeah. And I want to say thank you too. And I think this really shows the value of council input and review and public input and review, especially in a sensitive location like this. As was said, there are going to be impacts, and we are really sorry about those, but I think with your input and their willingness to accommodate in some ways, we have made a significant improvement. I think you yourself, Marco, said this is deemed a better project. Often happens once we review things and make a few comments. So with that, I will call the vote.
Actually,
did you have one more? Okay.
I will second that.
Yes.
And also thank the applicants for their willingness to work with the comments council made and come back with something that's a better project.
Very good. All right. City Clerk, can you call the vote, please?
Mayor Hebner,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Zito,
Zito, yes.
Councilmember Edson,
Edson, yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
5-0.
Okay. All right. Congratulations. Sure. Okay, so that's it for our evening because we don't have a staff.
more.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. We have the
One more
CAFR.
item.
Oh, my gosh. Almost forgot that. All ready to go home.
We don't want to forget the ACFRA.
Mhm.
So our last item, L2, is the fiscal year 2025 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or the ACFRA is what we often short call it. Tonight we have Shannon Ayala from Davis & Farr, a partner there, and our city's independent auditor. She's going to give a presentation, and then Rachel Jacobs, our finance director, is also here to answer any questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Shannon. And we're going to pull up the
Hi.
presentation.
I'm just going to wait for Rachel to bring it up. I'm going to make it short and sweet for you so you can all call it a night. Okay. As mentioned, I'm here to present on the audit results for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2025. Just a reminder that we begin our audit work in the May-June timeframe to perform our interim procedures. We come back in September to perform our final procedures, and we spend about 350, 400 hours working with Rachel and her staff to go through all of the requests that we have, updating our internal controls, and the culmination of all of that work is the issuance of the audit report. So we did issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements dated December 12th, 2025. That indicates that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And I just want to note that the unmodified opinion is the highest level of opinion that can be received, and that we did have an emphasis of matter paragraph this year related to the implementation of a new accounting standard. That's Government Accounting Standard number 101, which was for compensated absences. I'll give a little more detail about that on a later slide. Our opinion isn't modified with respect to this matter. And then we also issue the communication to those in governance letter and the government auditing standards opinion. So I want to state that the audit opinions on page 181 of your agenda packet, the government auditing standards opinion is on page 334, and the communication to those in governance letters on page 336. The audit results is there were no material journal entries detected as a result of our audit procedures. There were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control identified, and that Rachel and the finance team were very well prepared for the audit. So our areas of audit focus this year, our standard audit approach is to substantively test all material assets and liabilities and analytically test the material revenues and expenses. Our materiality is 2% of revenue, and that varies by major fund as well as the aggregate remaining information. And then we did have some additional areas of audit focus. So as mentioned, there was a new accounting standard to be implemented this year, and that was GASB 101. And that essentially resulted in a little bit higher liability for accrued vacation and sick time, as well as the taxes related to those liabilities. So prior to the implementation of GASB 101, public agencies recorded only vacation or sick time that they were going to pay out upon separation from the agency. However, the Accounting Standards Board said, well, people do use sick time even if you're not going to pay it out. So then you have to evaluate if something's more likely than not to be used and then accrue that. So that resulted in some analysis by Rachel and the team. And again, it had an immaterial effect on the financial statements, but it was something. And then for the investment in joint venture, that's with the San Alejo Joint Powers Authority. We obtained the calculation for recording that transaction as well as their audited financial statements, recalculated it and ensured that it was properly recorded and had no exceptions noted. And then lastly, each year we're required to perform an element of unpredictability as part of our audit. And this year we did Benford's Law testing. So I put a nice fun little graph up here to show you. This is essentially a data analytic test. And it looks, we essentially took all of the disbursements of the city, imported them into our data analysis software, and then it provided us with the Benford's Law, which is the curve there. And it essentially says that all disbursements will follow this curve related to the first 2 digits of the disbursement amount. So if you look on the bottom, it's like 10, 12, 14. That's what, if someone's paid $1,400, it goes into the 14 category. If they're paid $14,000, it goes into that category. So any of the red lines are the items that were outside of that curve. So that's considered maybe a highly suspicious transaction. So we essentially got the detail of all of those transactions. We reviewed them and then we judgmentally selected some to test. And again, when they say highly suspicious, it could be because something's a very large amount in that transaction group, or there's a lot of repeated payments for the same amount. So somebody might get a cell phone reimbursement for $50 a month. And so that would be 50, 50, 50. It would say there's a lot of transactions in there. So again, we judgmentally selected some transactions to review. We reviewed a total of 16 and obtained the support for those. Did some internet searches of the companies, and you were talking about Fiesta del Sol. So one of the items that we tested was for the Belly Up, and I know, they provide the music for that. So we didn't have any exceptions noted as a result of our testing for that. And with that, I can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. That was actually quite interesting. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions, Council? Deputy Mayor, do you have any questions? I don't.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So, this is a look back in time for a look in the future. Is there anything that we should be working on in the next year?
There is a new accounting standard that will be required to be implemented at the end of this fiscal year. That's GASB 103, and that will affect the management's discussion and analysis, the riveting letter after the audit opinion. So if any of you read that, that will be changing next year. It really requires some specific information to be included and things to exclude, and it wants management to provide really thoughtful analysis and not just boilerplate language year to year. So there will be some changes to that, as well as the enterprise fund reporting. Currently, there are no sort of definitions of what's recorded as operating versus non-operating revenue, but GASB 103 clearly defines what can be a non-operating revenue, and if something doesn't fall under that specific category, then it's going to be reported as an operating revenue. I haven't looked in detail at the enterprise funds, but I don't think it'll affect the city's financial statements materially. If anything, it'll just reclassify some things up to operating revenue as opposed to non-operating. But other than that, nothing else on the horizon.
Very good, thank you. Rachel, do you have anything to add?
Not to that specifically, but I do have a separate presentation to go into a little more
okay.
detail.
All right, thank you very much, and we'll turn it over to Rachel.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Shannon. Okay. Good evening. Tonight, we're going to review the ACFR results in a little bit more detail than what Shannon provided. The city's total net position, including all funds, increased approximately $9.6 million as a result of the fiscal year 25 operations, which brings the total to $131.8 million, which of that there's $80.8 million in governmental activities, while there is $51 million in the business activities. The total revenues for all funds was approximately $47.9 million, with $41.1 million from governmental activities and $6.7 million from business activities. And the total expenditures were $38.1 million, with $32.8 million from governmental activities and $5.2 million from the business type activities. The general fund, including the internal service funds, reported a net change in fund balance of approximately $5.9 million, which brought the total fund balance to $34.2 million for the general fund and the internal service funds. Here's a look at the general fund balance reserves broken down into specific categories. The total fund balance again increased approximately $5.9 million as shown here, and that does include the council authorized projection surplus transfers that we did back in October into the general fund internal service funds for asset replacement, facilities replacement, and the 115 trust for PARS and pension, as well as the transfers into the CIP for the various projects for both general fund and the Measure S fund. Here's a look at the general fund balance broken up into the reserve categories, which are non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. Here's a comparison from the fiscal year 2025 to the previous year 2024. An unassigned fund balance of just under $13.1 million includes the real property acquisition fund for the sanitation loan balance of $258,000, which will be fully paid off in this current fiscal year. Our total unassigned fund balance increased just under the $5.9 million. Here's a look at our other governmental funds, which include special revenue funds, debt service, and also CIP funds for capital improvement. The total fund balance increased $3.8 million, resulting in an ending fund balance of $25.4 million. Here's a look at the proprietary funds, which the only fund we currently have as an enterprise fund is the sanitation fund now. So the fund balance increased $1.4 million, resulting in an ending fund balance of $51 million, with approximately $39.6 million unrestricted. Our net OPEB liability decreased by 463,000 to 1.2 million for fiscal year 25. This was a decrease due to the total, sorry. This was due to a decrease in the total OPEB liability and also an increase in our net position. Again, that comes from the additional contributions that the city is putting in. And overall, our funded ratio per CalPERS increased to 64.2% from the 50.1% last fiscal year.
That's cool.
Sorry, it's not clicking. There it goes. Our net pension liability decreased 199,000, resulting in a total of 20.79 million for net pension liability at the end of fiscal year 25. GASB doesn't allow the funds in the 115 trust to be reflected in the net pension, so the funded status shown for the plan is 71.96%. However, due to our additional contributions for the pension rate stabilization, our true funded ratio is closer to the 83.4% shown at the bottom of the screen. There was no single audit required for fiscal year 25. We did not have any expenditures over 750,000 in federal awards, so we are not required to file a single audit. And the staff recommendation for tonight is to accept and file the City of Solana Beach ACFR for the fiscal year that ended June 30th, 2025. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Thanks, Rachel, and thank you so much for your work with Shannon. Sounds like you guys were a team for a while, and I got a lot done. Any questions? I see no questions. So, Councilmember Zito, you want to make a motion?
Sure thing, no questions. I mean, the one question I do have isn't really appropriate to ask, which is to ask the auditor how we compare to Sandag's audits, but since the same firm does both. But being on the audit committee at Sandag, I can answer that one without knowing. So
you know that.
I'm glad our city does much better.
Yes,
But-
we're getting better at
So,
Sandag.
good job, staff. Thank you for that. And yeah, thanks to all the staff and for the clear and very useful presentation. I really appreciate it. And with that, I'm happy to make a motion to accept the two items as outlined in the staff report.
Very good. May I have a second, please? Second by Edson. City Clerk, can you please call the vote?
Mayor Hibner,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Zito,
Zito, yes.
Councilmember McDonald, oh, sorry,
Edson?
I'm going the wrong way. Councilmember Edson,
Yes, Edson, yes.
Councilmember Becker.
Yes.
Becker. Thank you. 5-0.
Okay, that passes unanimously. We're on to the pulled item, which is item J2.
Yes,
Mayor, before we move on, could I also take a moment to thank both Shannon and Rachel
Sure.
for a job well done? Thank you. And for, as Councilmember Zito pointed out, very clear reporting, which was easy for us to read and understand. And, you know, often we do have a lot of questions because we're having to dig things out and they aren't quite as clear. Excellent job, you guys.
Great job. Thanks.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, item J1, City Manager.
Yes, so this item was
J2.
pulled. Yes, J2 is the geotechnical engineering plan review and inspection services. If the mayor, deputy mayor, council, I think Councilmember Zito, if you would be okay to waive presentation, we can talk about the information contained and answer any questions you might have.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, the main concern I had was I noticed when I read the report there was only one response to the RFP, and there wasn't information about the content of that response. So I asked the city manager to provide some information. I don't know if you wanted to give an update specifically about the prior costs versus the new costs in the RFP. And I mean, did you just
Yeah.
want me to share what I saw, or?
Well, I think so. It is we received one proposal
Right.
for as-needed services. This is a service that we utilize for a third-party review as projects come in, development projects come in. If they require geotechnical review, or primarily that's what we use it for. We don't do testing so much. And we have a separate contract that's related to our own capital projects. So this is just for that development review. CTE was our contractor before. They have been acquired by UES, who is the recommended consultant for this contract that's before you. Let me give you the example of principal engineer under CTE when they were executing their last contract in 2020. It was $150 an hour for a principal engineer geologist. There was no increase, no CPI added into that contract, so that rate stayed the same through the entirety, despite services and cost for those services have increased. We've seen it in our own personnel. Now the proposal has for principal engineer geologist $280 an hour, so it is a considerable increase. But again, there was no change from the last proposal to this. This company is a larger company that acquired CTE, and so that might explain for some of that difference in cost for the hourly rate. But from there, I'll maybe have you
Okay,
if you
yeah,
have a question
and just
about that.
given that it more than doubled, that's obviously way beyond CPI, and these are costs that are directly paid for by our residents and people in the city. So just gave me some concern, but I know talking with the city manager, you find the company very good to work with so far, right? With staff, they're very, they're a good company as far as we can tell,
Yes,
right?
they've been very responsive to
Right.
all the staff's requests as it relates to third-party reviews. They've also helped us with some of the sand deposit reconciliation as well, and the tables that we're working on right now for those projects. So we do pay for some service, but it was limited as to what we pay for. Most of those are passed through
They're passed through, but they're still paid for by
the
people doing
applicants.
projects in our town, right?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
so given that, and then we had only one response, I mean, I don't really want to burden staff by going out again, but I was thinking of, and would go ahead and make a motion to adopt the resolution, but to strike the 2 one-year extensions. So it would just be a 3-year term, and then we would go out again, and not do the 2 one-year optional extensions,
Be
just
fine.
to go out again and see if we get more bids next time. And that would be my
Absolutely.
motion.
Okay, I'm in agreement. Anybody else want to second this? Okay. Councilmember Deputy Mayor McDonald?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Oh, okay, we already got one.
Oh, okay.
Councilmember Becker beat you to it. All right, I will call for the vote. City Clerk, can you please call the vote? Yes.
Deputy Mayor McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Zito,
Zito, yes.
Councilmember Edson,
Edson, yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
5-0.
Okay, that passes. Now, we are on to work plan comments. Any legislative correspondence we wanted to highlight?
We did send a letter on SB 677 that will be posted to our website. We do have a webpage for a resource of the letters that we send on pending legislation, as well as any contact information for your state and federal legislators. That letter, similar themes to before the proposed SB 677, which was characterized as a cleanup by Senator Wiener, does include now City of Solana Beach in consideration for SB 79 applicability. We believe that there needs to be some additional consideration of uniqueness of the individual stations, and don't see this as being a cleanup. And so we presented that information to the senator and to the Senate that was considering the item this week. It did pass through the Senate, and it will be now moved to the Assembly.
In the spring. It'll go to the Assembly.
In the spring is
Yeah.
the estimated or projected timeline.
Okay, very good. All right. Compensation and reimbursement disclosures? No. Council Commission reports? Councilmember Zito?
Yeah, I went to a couple of commissions. The only item of note that I thought was interesting, maybe most people know this, but at Regional Solid Waste Association, they did mention that as of June 1st or maybe July 1st of this year, a new law comes into effect in the state where they'll no longer be able to use sell-by dates when they sell food. They'll have to use either use-by dates or best-by dates. So because right now nobody knows. The issue is that a lot of people throw out food after a sell-by date, and you can still eat it at that point.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just so they will not have to identify whether it's a use by, which means you really should throw it out, or if it's a best buy, which means that you can actually, if you don't want it, you can give it to somebody else or something like that. So it's intended to try to reduce food waste, but that will be kicking in July of this year, and so we'll all be getting new terminology to get used to.
I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that with us all. Good. Anybody else? Councilmember Benson?
I sort of made my announcement at the beginning, sorry
Okay,
about that,
all right.
about Free Ride Day. And I hope everyone will go out and take advantage of that because, how often do you get a free ride?
Yeah, there you go. I am happy to report that we did receive, the City of Solana Beach did receive a $3.5 million Smart Growth Incentive Plan grant for Loma Santa Fe West, which is excellent news for us. And there is a use by date on that. So we have to make sure we get that done so we don't lose that. I don't want to have to get an extension at Sandig with all we went through to get this. It is the first time the City of Solana Beach has received a Smart Growth Incentive Plan, and all of our residents have been paying their Transnet tax. So finally, we're getting a little bit back in this manner. With that, I will adjourn the meeting until February 18th. See you all then.